Good morning, it's Friday, February 13th, 2026. I'm meteorologist Andrew Pritchard with a look at your Canadian prairie weather story. Happy Friday the 13th. We're still talking about the pattern change. We've got this big extended jet streak running across North America, an active storm track over the next 2 weeks. That's going to trend us cooler, colder even across the prairies, and we have to kind of watch for snow to maybe follow here. It's not going to be all of a sudden, all at once. Getting the storm track active again is the first step, but then getting the right trajectory here across, the lower 48 up into the Canadian prairies, Western Canada, is kind of the second part of that. So over the last 10 days, very quiet, very dry across the Canadian prairies, all the way down into the northern and central U.S., Alberta, Saskatoon, Winnipeg. We're talking about no precip, if maybe just a trace. That would have been Regina 0. Saskatoon, you got a whole quarter of an inch over the last 10 days. So lucky you guys. Edmonton, probably around a tenth of an inch or so. And then as we look at current snowpack, of course, plenty of it north of Highway 16, but across the prairie proper, down into the northern high plains, the upper Midwest of the United States, still looking for that snowpack. Going to have to kind of hope for a late rally, maybe a miracle March here to restore the snowpack. And again, it's you all the way down into much of the Rockies as you go down towards the western U.S. Kind of a huge sector here that's been missed out. Now, as we look at the satellite picture here, we can see the pattern has begun to change. It was, dominated by this big ridge. Felt like every time we talked, we were looking at storm systems coming up over the top of this big ridge over western North America. And now we're starting to get some southwest flow. We're starting to get troughs digging in across the western U.S. We get a belt of stronger flow from the jet stream associated with that. As you can see, well to the south of the prairies, though, we're still talking about this rain over the next few days, mostly impacting portions of the southern U.S. The good thing is this is just kind of the first storm system in a series over the next couple of weeks or more. Take a look at precipitation here Friday morning. Some light mixed precip north of Highway 16, kind of between Edmonton and Saskatoon here this morning. It's going to be a pretty quiet day. Not a lot in the way of precipitation in the near term, and that really runs through the beginning of next week. Now, temperatures, I mentioned last week, we're going to start to kind of even the playing field. It's been bitterly, bitterly cold in the east, portions of southern Winnipeg, or southern Manitoba specifically, kind of around the Winnipeg area. You guys have been just frigid going back to, the last couple of weeks of January or more. On the flip side, Alberta, you head toward the west, it's been quite mild. And so we're kind of evening this out, and then eventually, over the next 7 to 10 days, we're going to start to bring some colder air in across the entirety of the prairie. Now, here's the jet stream right now. I mentioned we're changing up the pattern. Gone is the persistent ridge across the western U.S., or western North America, I should say. And, here's that first wave. I mentioned primarily bringing some flow and some moisture to the southern U.S. Let's animate this, though, and we'll watch a series of lows coming in across the North American continent. So here's the first one. Bring some rain, some thunderstorms to parts of the southern United States. Look at this big trough building, though, across the Pacific. This is going to be a quiet weekend for us. You see kind of a little disturbance tracking through the U.S.-Canada border region here over the back half of the weekend. Not much moisture for this system to work with, so we'll talk about the chance for maybe some light flurries across the region. But really, it's a look like this that you want to see. This big trough, these fast winds rounding the base of the trough, and then this big area here. This is a lot of lift, a lot of atmospheric lift here out ahead of these troughs. So this is one that would bring some wintry weather to portions of the Rockies that badly need it. This is getting closer to impacting you here, the Canadian prairies. This would, track south of the region, though, once again. And when I get a little more optimistic here, it's towards the end of this model run. This is all the way out here to February 24th, 25th, and 26th. So you could kind of say we're out to weather model la land at this point. But look at this fast flow coming around the base of the trough. And now the upper level divergence, that lift, is creeping ever further north. So the first system way down here, second system kind of central U.S., and then the next one here trying to lift. So it's all about getting the right location here and the right ejection of these upper level lows. And so now that we've looked at the upper level winds, we can tie this back to something that's, a little more useful, a little more intuitive, that being the precipitation forecast. Now we'll run it through the weekend. I showed you the first system has that upper level lift, that first patch of upper level flow, that first trough impacts the southern United States. So this is your Friday night into your Saturday and now into your Sunday. I also mentioned we have a little ripple in the flow off to the north, bringing some light flurries to portions of the prairie here over the back half of the weekend, Sunday and Monday. That's what that looks like right there. Now, here's the next system that ejects here mid next week. This is around Wednesday, February 18th, 19th, 20th. This one brings some potential snow, probably light in nature, but potentially bringing some accumulating snow to portions of the prairie here mid next week as this one ejects. I think more of the upper level energy going to be focused across the central United States, but you're seeing some opportunities here. The bigger areas of low pressure running across the central U.S. here during the middle and later part of next week, but there are some opportunities for snow across the prairie. We get a little bit of a reset in the pattern then as we go through the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. This is when that next big wave, that next big push of jet stream flow comes sweeping through. And this one right now, the model is saying maybe a better chance of a further north track. And you can see the impacts there. This is when I was showing you that next batch of strong flow rounding the base of the trough, but then ejecting here across portions of the prairies and the northern plains. And now we're starting to spin up a more impactful low or two further to the north, potentially bringing in some more high impact wintry weather. So this is very much way out at the end of the model run. We'll watch this. We'll have another time to talk about this next Friday. We'll still be talking about something that's 4 to 7 days out into the future as we get together next Friday, the 20th of February. But this is kind of where I kind of walk us through the pattern transition. It's not everything all at once. First step, colder temperatures. That happens as we head into early next week. The next step is getting an active storm track across North America. We do start that this weekend. The first system that passes south. The next couple of systems mid next week pass, central U.S. And then maybe as we get into next week, and we're talking about stronger areas next weekend, stronger areas of low pressure passing through the prairie. So your snowfall forecast here through the February 17th on the left, pretty sparse. We're talking about maybe light flurries over the back half of the weekend, Sunday into Monday. But then as we get into kind of February 21st through the 28th, slightly higher chances for some of those snows to begin falling across the prairie proper. Not all at once, but it's a gradual progression. The next week, more impactful thing is going to be those temperatures, but then maybe in the last week of February, we could be talking about more in the way of impactful precipitation. Here's your probability of half an inch or more of total precipitation. That's liquid precipitation, so rain or snow. Again, over the next 7 days, you can see the red shaded areas across the southern U.S. That's where that highest probability is with the first couple of storm systems. But then as we get into the last week of February, we start getting back towards anywhere from a 40 to 70% chance across much of the prairie of picking up a half an inch or so, that likely being in the form of some snow during the last week, the last 4 or 5 days of the month of February here, fingers crossed. Again, all of this hinging on this pattern change, which we are full steam ahead into. Now we just kind of watch storm by storm, try to get 1 or 2 of these to come right up from Colorado, swinging into the prairie instead of running west to east across the United States. We'll look side by side. Here's the European model on the left, the GFS on the right, both of these running all the way through the end of the month. And you can see some differing ideas. You can definitely see the heavier precipitation falling across British Columbia, coastal portions of western Canada, down into the western U.S., and then again across portions of the Great Lakes down across the southern U.S. But certainly from February 21st through the 28th, those chances for storm systems getting into the prairie, bringing more in the way of impactful precipitation, that starts to increase. First step, higher confidence thing, save it for last. We are going to be trending colder across the prairies. That's the first step if we want to get some snows here. That mild pattern, that persistent ridge of high pressure that has parked itself over the region, keeping storm systems, away and keeping mild air in place. Getting that out of here, that's the first step. We're bringing a lot of cold air and kind of flip the alignment here. This is a much better look if you want to talk about storm systems coming in here, tapping into some cold, bringing in moisture northward from the Gulf and running right through the region. This is the temperature, kind of layout that you want. Warmer air off to the south, colder air parked across the prairie. Storm systems love to kind of run right through wherever that gradient is, wherever that kind of thermal, what we call baroclinic boundary sets up. So my eyes are on the end of February, the beginning of March for some potential higher impact storm systems across the Canadian prairies. I know we don't necessarily want to wait that long, but having some confidence and a time frame to watch is kind of that first step. Your temperatures are on the downtrend though. Calgary 8 for the high today, minus 5 to 8 degrees as you get into the mid part of next week. Those overnight lows getting down to around minus 15 to minus 20. Edmonton, very similar. Your highs -10 to -15 as we get into next week, with overnight lows potentially into the -20s. A little colder as you go off to the east. Saskatoon, 0 for the high today. You'll be back below freezing and staying there as you get to Monday through the next week or more. Regina, same thing here, all the way down to -20 for those lows late next week. And then here it is in Winnipeg. Again, I mentioned we're kind of leveling the playing field, so no longer is Winnipeg bitterly cold while, Alberta, Calgary and Edmonton are on the mild side. Pretty much everyone's slipping into a colder pattern late February into early March. Fingers crossed this comes with some snow, again, as we get to the end of February and the beginning of March. We'll talk again next Friday. That'll be February 20th. Have a wonderful week.